Despite the title of this video is not optional. It is muy importante, and that's code for optionals. Optionals are used to indicate whether an instance may not have a value, which is why they're called optionals. Two things should come to mind when you're taking a gander at an optional. It either has a value and is ready to be used, or it doesn't have a value at all. If an instance doesn't have a value associated with it, we say that the instance is nil. N-I-L. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. We can use optionals with any type to signal that an instance could potentially be nil. It's kind of like a wallet. It could have value in it, but if we're being honest with ourselves, it could also be empty. I'm with you, brother. An instance that could possibly be nil should be declared as an optional type. If we don't declare the instance as an optional type, the instance is guaranteed to not be nil. By declaring an instance optional, the compiler knows whether an instance can be nil and will make our code more expressive and safe. So let's declare an optional type. Let's just say we're making an app for a school, and we do classroom string is a string option. Classroom. First, we made a variable called classroom string to hold on to a classroom's information in a string. Then, we explicitly declared the type of classroom string to be a string optional. We put a question mark by it. The question mark makes classroom string an optional of the type string. Dang, doesn't that make you want to just sit back and smile because it's so dolphin flippin' easy? Let's keep going. Now that we declared an optional and given it a value, let's go ahead and log the value of the optional to the console. Take a look at what it says in the console. It says optional 303. What would happen if we didn't give classroom string a room number? So let's go ahead and test it out. It logged it as nil, but logging nil to the console seems kind of whack, right? It doesn't really tell us much about the variable. We want to know when our variables are nil so that we can execute code based on whether there is a value there or not. Let's use a conditional to check out what's going on up in this variable's house. For instance, let's pretend that some operation we coded up generated a room number for the classroom string. We want to assign that room number to a new variable and log it to the console. So if we did something like if the classroom string is not equal to nil, blessings. So what's going on around here? We set up a conditional with code that executes if classroom string is not nil. In the body of the if statement, we created a new constant called room number to hold the value of classroom string. To do this, we appended an exclamation mark to classroom string. The exclamation mark doesn't mean we're super stoked about classroom strings, you know. It means that we are force unwrapping the variable. Force unwrapping accesses the underlying value of the optional, which allows us to snag the 303 and assign it to the constant room number. It's called force unwrapping because it tries to access the underlying value whether or not there's actually a value there at all. It's kind of like a burglar. They're going to break in and see if you have any goods, whether you do, or like most of us, or at least me, you don't. So the exclamation mark assumes there is a value. If there isn't a value, unwrapping the value in this way would lead to a runtime error, which would blow. Nobody likes errors. I know you guys would never write one, but they suck. And force unwrapping can be risky business. If there isn't a value inside the optional, our program will trap at runtime. This time around, we checked to make sure that classroom string wasn't nil, so force unwrapping it wasn't dangerous. However, use force unwrapping cautiously and sparingly because it gets crazy. Lastly, we just logged the new constant's value to the console. But what if we didn't unwrap classroom string's value, but simply assign the optional to the constant room number? The value of room number would still have been logged to the console correctly. I'm sure that's not the answer you were expecting. So why, then what the heck? Like why unwrap the optional's value and assign it to a constant? You're asking really tough questions right now, and I appreciate that, but it's putting me in a predicament. I'm trying to do a tutorial here. If we had omitted the exclamation mark at the end of this guy right here, we would have assigned the optional string to a constant instead of the actual string value for classroom string. In fact, classroom string is of type string optional, and string optional is not the same type as a string. If we have a string variable, we can't set it to the value of a string optional without unwrapping the optional. I feel like I said the word optional like 20 times, but the sentence made sense for sure. The optional classroom string was nil when it was first declared. because it wasn't given a value. In the next line, we gave it 303. We can compare an optional value to nil to determine whether it contains a value. We wrote the code to first check whether classroom string has a value. If the value isn't equal to nil, we will know it is safe to unwrap classroom string. Creating a constant inside the conditional is kind of weird. There's a better way to do it for sure, and it's called optional binding. Who would have thought? I'll show you that in the next video. I love you guys. Subscribe and comment what you think about optionals.